We're going to talk about the customer journey as it relates to the equipment customer. And so Ryan and Cole have been gracious enough to be willing to share a little bit about how they manage the customer experience at their respective dealerships. And to give you a brief background, Cole is the president of Bobcat of North Texas, married with 3 daughters, lives in Frisco, Texas, likes to play golf, cards, and assists his youngest daughter in hauling the horse around for shows. Grew up working on a farm, so the equipment business was a great fit, so has some great farming background. Started at White Star Machinery with Berry Company shortly after college, went to KC Bobcat for 10 years, now has been at Bobcat of North Texas for 14 years when Berry Companies acquired North Texas. And he's been coming to the AED Summit for 15 years now. Ryan Strand, president of Bobcat of Rockies, lives in Castle Rock, Colorado, married with 2 kids, 7 and 12. Worked at Bobcat Company for 12 years in various roles, including district sales, finance manager, dealer development, and has been at Bobcat of Rockies for the last 10 years. So I think the really interesting thing here is we have 2 people from pretty diverse backgrounds who come into the equipment world and are responsible for managing these dealerships. So I think we're going to get some good perspectives, and even in some preparation for today's session, we had a little bit of kind of, oh, I see it this way, I see it this way, which I think makes for a great opportunity. Our real goal for today is to have each one of you be able to walk away and take something that Ryan or Cole shared about the customer journey, what they're doing to refine it, improve it, what they envision in the future and how the journey is going to change. And ideally, you have some action items that you can take away from today's meeting. So that's the big goal. It's more about learning than it is anything else. All right, let's get rocking. So we're going to start off in the beginning part of the process when we think about research and discovery. So the customer is starting to research for a product. They're not sure maybe exactly what they need. They're going to look online. They're going to do all sorts of stuff. So what we want to get from a perspective here is understanding how Ryan and Cole see that process occurring today, how they see it evolving, where some of the challenges are, and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about how you think the customer identifies the need for their heavy equipment today.
I guess I'll start, but I think they're using the internet way more than they ever have in the past and doing a lot of research kind of ahead of time before they ever make contact with us. And our goal is to try to intercept them pretty early in the process. We probably invest more into our digital marketing than anything else with display ads, the Google profile, the pay-per-clicks, just all that kind of stuff, trying to capture that business so that we can at least have a shot at it when they're in that research stage.
Yeah, ours isn't much different. It's a lot of digital stuff, geofencing, keyword searches. Obviously, I have a marketing manager that's a lot smarter at the words than I am, but she's very good at following a trail of, a customer from this group that likes this thing, follows on and clicks this, and then she starts marketing more to that. Probably the biggest thing that we're starting to do, we haven't gotten very far down the road yet, but when he's talked that online research, I think a lot of features and benefits that they deem important, they're decided before a salesman even talks to them anymore. So we're starting to do a lot more video shoots on short videos of features, benefits that they can watch and almost convince themselves that we're the right product for them without us having to convince them. I think it speeds up that sales process as well, where it's almost where if they've decided on a feature or benefit of a certain brand, you're almost having to tell them they're wrong in order to change them to your brand. So that's where I think the importance comes in that early stages of that marketing and really pushing those features and benefits that you have or the product has.
What percentage of those customers don't know what they need? I know you said that a lot of customers come and they already have the knowledge, they've done the research. What percentage of those customers are kind of like, I have no idea?
Anymore, it's very few. It depends on the product line that we're selling. Some of the grounds maintenance stuff that we've entered into, that one's a very, educated online but unsure how everything actually works. The core construction side, I would argue they understand the product, what it's supposed to do, what it will do. I think the one thing that they're not fully, locked in on what feature benefit is a benefit to them. So I think it's more some of that training or features like that, that if they have questions, that's more what it is.
Give me a percent. So what percentage of those customers, and what, maybe tell me the two different types of lines that you sort of, the way you look at the business.
If I look at grounds maintenance, that's gonna be our compact tractors, mowers, products like that. That one's a very high knowledge gaining process for them. I'd say 70% of them are just looking for just going, here's what I'm doing, what will work on the construction line, which is our skids, our tracks, our excavators. I would dare say it's maybe 20, 30%, maybe newer customers getting into it or diversifying into a different part of their business that they haven't done before, maybe looking for more advice. But a lot of those, it's just kind of that repeat type customer.
Same for you, Cole?
I would say also, they think they know what they want, but they don't always have it right, and so it's our job to kind of assist them or guide them to get them into something that would fit for them better. And I also think that they don't always understand everything we can do for them, because when they're doing a lot of that research online, they are just looking at features and benefits and horsepower and all those types of specs. And the truth is, what we want to sell them is the dealership and our service and our support and those types of things that they haven't even thought about or don't realize that there could be a huge difference.
Okay, so that sort of pushes us into, you talked about when we were prepping for this solutions-based selling. So how do you take this person that comes into your dealership, doesn't really know maybe exactly what they need, or you're helping educate them, how do you convert them over from a kind of a transactional buyer at that point over to a solutions-based buyer? And is that more likely kind of on your GME versus core, or tell me about the differences there?
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while. We always say we're in business for the long haul, so we're very patient. But just kind of building that relationship. Yeah, and you mentioned it, so I'll go with that. The consumer-based business that we have is pretty transactional. They don't necessarily want us following up with them, but our construction-based customer, the ones that rely on us to make their living and make their company successful, they generally will embrace it, especially when they figure out how helpful it can be. So I don't know, I'd say with those guys, we could get to maybe 60-70% of them just wanting to do business with us and stay with us and transact with us, really just through trust.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say on the core construction stuff, yeah, you're trying to sell the house, and quite frankly, if you haven't done it and they're not coming back, I mean, that's your problem. I kind of look at that's what we failed at. Pricing usually is a problem on the first one where they may be shopping 3-4 different brands, and they probably should. But on the second, third, fourth transaction, if we're still really negotiating on price, I kind of look at we didn't do our job. We didn't make the experience that's something they want to chase and something that they want. And sometimes, honestly, when they do leave, you did the right thing when they want to come back, and sometimes that creates a better customer because he's gotten a little bit of both sides of the fence, and so I guess I always look for that. If they do leave, are we going to get them back? Did we do our job?
Yeah, we've certainly had that as well. We always say, just get the first deal, because once you have that first deal, even if it's at a really low margin, and it wouldn't be a good healthy margin for us to move forward and take care of the customers that they want to be taken care of, it gives us that opportunity to get them in and then grow that business, grow that trust, and then we can eke up that margin because at that point they see the value in it. But a lot of times it's 2 or 3 or 4 machines down the road.
Okay, we've sort of bled over a little bit, but so we got the research and discovery, right? Now we got that initial contact. Who's typically making the initial contact in your organization with the customer? And talk to me about some of the challenges you have in that customer journey, right? What are, whether it's trying to convert that customer from transaction to solutions-based, or if it's trying to, convert them from a competitive type customer to, doing business with you guys. What does that initial contact look like?
For us, it's generally our field sales reps that are making that initial contact. Sometimes, I would say pretty few times though, we go to them first. A lot of times they're trying to steal away a customer from the competition, or they see someone that they think could potentially use the equipment to help them out and they just don't understand it. And then the other way that we get them is they come directly to us. So they've been online, they've seen our websites, they've seen our ads, and then they call us or come into the store. And it's still, we have dedicated inside sales reps and dedicated outside sales reps, and we try to get it into the outside rep as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, I think you have two prongs. You have the ones going out, you got the easy targets, guys with the different color machines, the different brand names on that you should be chasing. It's trying to discover who's doing a job that could benefit from a product, whether it be rental, turn into sales, and then you have the ones walking in through their own research, or, you know, a lot of those too. It's you know, call it homeowner with acreage that may want a construction type machine, whether they really have something to do with it or just for fun. So there's really three prongs or two prongs on how you're finding or going after customers.
Okay. Yeah, how do you envision that process changing?
I think it's going to go more and more through the digital research. It's odd because a lot of times customers like to buy with you at an arm's length, and it's really easy to do that with, you know, email and text and all of that stuff. But I also see our sales reps liking that as well. So if both parties like that, it's going to be really hard to not let gravity take over and get further and further away from having that more personal relationship. Although I think you can still have it, but it's probably going to begin at that point where it's pretty standoffish. One another.
So how do you give advice to this group about kind of, I don't want to call it fighting that trend, but how do you give advice to this group during that kind of portion of the customer journey to make sure that you don't just move to 100% transaction and lose that relationship? Or is it inevitable?
I hope it's not inevitable, because, I mean, I feel like our best feature is a relationship selling. It's a relationship with customers. It's not a transactional basis. I mean, I think a lot of customers like to turn it into that until they need you, and then they want their relationship back. And I think the key there is to kind of, you know, be able to work that. And we've noticed a lot of transition in the market today where, you know, so-and-so founded the company, started it, he's handed it off to his son, and our sales reps are running into this where, you know, when the dad owned it, it was a pretty simple transaction. He's the only one they'd call. Now the son's taking it over, and now he's shopping, and he's going and looking at other manufacturers and other dealerships, and, you know, our sales reps are struggling with that. And it's, you know, I think really the key there is they got to go to the next level deeper in that relationship with that customer, and not just think this guy's going to own it forever, this guy's going to, you know, make the purchase decisions forever. And I think we've fallen into that trap over the last 5 years, where it's becoming, you know, you see more and more of these of disappointment in a decision, and we didn't even know who was actually making the decision because we weren't that close to the customers we thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a training opportunity?
Yeah, and I think, I really kind of think the auto industry did a really good job of kind of paving the way for great customer service. We have a local dealerships called Sewell dealerships, but people, they buy Sewells because this guy wrote the book on customer service, and you feel it. And we even had, we were driving a different brand car, and we traded with a brand that we ran for years and years, the manufacturer, and we gave up on it because we could not find a good dealer to support it. And we went to a brand that we had never had with this dealership group that I'm talking about, and wouldn't go back, would never consider it. It's just, that makes a huge difference. So our customers feel the same thing. Our industry isn't all that different. We're just a little bit behind, I'd argue. But I think the people that get there first and can perfect that will definitely have an advantage, especially in construction and with the contractor.
Yeah, I always felt like in this industry is always used as a little bit of excuse. It's construction, it's a different clientele. And I guess the thing that we preach at our stores every day is, You know, we compete against customer service at every consumer level. I don't care if it's your favorite restaurant, if it's your favorite department store. That is what everybody expects anymore, whether they're buying a part or whether they're buying a chicken sandwich. And I think we sometimes lose that. We feel like we're different, but we're not. And I think that's the one hard thing to get, you know, every employee to think that way, is they can make a difference. They provide that experience, and, you know, that's the hard thing, to train that culture and to keep preaching it over and over again.
Awesome. When we were prepping, you guys mentioned how data has such a major impact in your process for being able to identify prospects or customers that are ready for purchase. Talk to us a little bit about how you're using data and where you're using it in the journey and how you think it's impacting the sales process.
For us, we've always had a lot of data, and I call it, there's so much of it, it's like drinking through a fire hose, and sometimes it's hard to figure out how to use it. We have an analytics department that sends us tons and tons of data, but they've done a good job of prioritizing it. And so now, instead of looking at the 100 different line items of customers you should go try to contact, we've used algorithms that say, you know, these 10 are the most likely to buy something this month. Call those 10 first. And if you can't call the next 5, that's okay, but call these 10. And using tools like that, I think, has helped us out some, but it is pretty easy to get swallowed up by all the data points.
Yeah, I think today it's narrowing it down. I mean, you know, coming from the finance side, I mean, it's been known forever. Average customer finance for 47 months, they traded at 27 months. I mean, you know, you kind of had that algorithm of when they were going to buy, but it wasn't brought down into usable format. And, you know, I think that's one thing with, as Cole said, the analytics team is starting to narrow that down to where you're not having to have someone search through 85 different spreadsheets to find that one customer that's going to buy this month. It starts to narrow it down, and I think that's one thing that's changed very drastically. And I think salesmen are going to have to adapt and learn to use that along with what they think is their relationship selling or their buddies that are in the industry, if you want to call it, to get ahead of more and more buyers.
Yeah, and using tools, new tools like Power BI. You know, at one point it was an Excel spreadsheet, and then it was a pivot table. We thought, well, this is great, but you know, now we have Power BI, and that's even next level. So using tools like that's helped out quite a bit.
Okay, so thinking about where things are going, how do you hire the right type of people, or what are the right type of people that can now use all of this data along with kind of their understanding of the marketplace and the industry to be successful? Because it feels like there's a transition afoot a little bit as far as, you know, it's not just the traditional person that sort of uses their own sense of what, you know, who needs to be sold what when. We're bringing in tools, we're bringing in analytics. How does that person in the sales role change?
I don't want to say, let me be careful on how I say this. It's going to be someone that isn't locked in on this industry. We have more success bringing salesmen in from outside this industry, but understand how to manage territory. We've even went to as far as adding a sales manager, not to manage the staff or to tell them how to sell. We've actually added a sales manager that actually teaches them how to manage a territory, how to work a territory, how many cold calls, how many quotes have to go out each month to hit numbers and quotas, and how to do that and where to go about it. And I think that's the difference. Is it's not how much you know the equipment, it's not how much you can talk about horsepower, it's how do you manage a territory. It's how you, well, as I always say, time is the most expensive currency, and tomorrow's salesmen have to be pretty protective of their time if they're going to be successful.
Yeah, it's, you know, we've had such a low unemployment rate too, and so it's hard to find anybody, let alone someone that's really good in all those areas. So it's a struggle, but I'd agree with Ryan. You almost have to train it into them and spend more time and resources doing that once you get them on board.
Great. All right, we've talked about, you know, the discovery, we've talked about that initial contact. Let's talk about pricing and negotiation. What does that look like from a customer's perspective? Like how are they negotiating the pricing? Is it kind of fixed pricing? Do you have flexibility when they're a competitive brand? Talk to me about what that looks like.
I
think it's probably a lot of text exchanges back and forth. That's the way it feels like.
With the customer?
With the
Yeah.
customer,
And
yeah.
is that
In
new,
the
you
sales
think?
route.
How recent has that been that texting is the kind of the way to exchange?
5, 7 years, something
Okay.
like that would be my guess.
Does it work?
Yeah,
Ish.
ish. You can get them in the door, and like we talked about earlier, if you can get that very first deal, you can really start to change the game and their understanding on what else you can provide for them, because they will eventually, they're running construction equipment, so they will eventually need parts and service. It's going to happen, and that's when they start to feel our value is more at that point. But the texting or whatever, getting that relationship off the start it's one of our challenges for sure.
Suggestions for the group about kind of how to attack that?
I don't know, I look at a new customer, they want to keep you at arm's length. I do it, if I want to kind of get a price, kind of see if I'm interested, I want to be able to cut it off very quickly if I want to get out, and I think that's where a lot of the customers are, and so there is a skill set to it. I mean, as funny as it sounds, there's a skill set to it to be able to communicate and draw someone in through that technology. Once they're in, I think it goes hopefully back to a more relationship-based sales process, but that first one, I mean, you see it with guys that struggle with technology, and they're the ones grumbling down the hall going, this guy just keeps texting me, and the salesmen are comfortable with it, they're just firing it off, and it definitely seems like that arm's length is what they want until they're comfortable with you.
I'm a huge believer in investing in that digital marketing. If you can get them thinking and understanding what your dealership looks like and feels like online, and what you can offer them early in the process, I think that goes about as far as anything.
Okay. I don't know if it exists, but are there any classes or tools as far as helping people understand how best to communicate via digital channels to be able to kind of bring people in?
I know it's not me, I can barely text the same person accurately, so it ain't me.
You know what I mean? Like, if that's such a critical skill set, we've got these people that have the sales skills, how do we train them about approaches in digital communication that starts to build that relationship?
We've started really focusing in on that same type of training, and even on up to customer service, and not just with salespeople, but kind of across the board in many areas. But for us, our answer is we'll bring in, we have internal trainers, one internal trainer specifically, and then we'll bring in external trainers as well. We've brought in, I'd say 3 in the last 2 years, so plus our internal training. And so we put a lot of time and resources into that.
That's great. Purchase and financing. I know when we prepped for this that you were pretty passionate about financing being a critical component. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I guess, I mean, coming from the sales side with Bobcat Company and going into the finance side, I guess it was an eye-opener for me on how effective that was in moving a sales transaction along. I guess really what I realized is your average buyer thinks of 60 months or whatever the term is to stretch out the payments as far as possible. And the truth is they just get upside down. They get in a bad spot. And, I think what really came to light was just the tools that are out there that the finance companies will do, whether it be skip payments, whether it be the lease, whether it be seasonal type things. And I think having that awareness as a salesman is probably, in my mind, it's not revolutionary, but it's that next step. It's something that it's more than telling about a feature or benefit, and you're solving a problem for them, really is what you're doing, and most of them solve it by a 60-month note or whatever, 72, and at, whatever, 27 months, the machine needs to be replaced, and at that point, they're 10 grand upside down, so they cycle through that a little bit, and pretty soon they're a machine upside down in a machine, if they can keep getting it financed, and you just put a customer in a bad spot. And I think to me, it's one of the biggest things that sounds simple, but really for a salesman to understand how to sell, what to sell, and how to package that for a customer that keeps him in a equitable, if you want to call it, position or not upside down is I don't know, I just think there's a lot of opportunity in that, and it's, with some time, it's very easy.
I also think the customers are more receptive to finance solutions. I remember pre-2009, 2008, 2009, it was 60 months, 0%, and you just kick that can and you put 3,000 hours on it, and it's you're upside down by month 20. And customers understand that because a lot of them lost in those times, and so they get it, and they don't want to be in that negative equity. And they understand we like to talk more about cash flow, so if we can get them into a lease or something like that, then they have a fixed expense. They keep the machine under warranty, so there's no big surprises there, and they're thinking more about just cash flow versus ownership.
Great. All right, so we've got the purchase done, that part of the journey's over, now we're towards delivery and setup. How important do you perceive delivery and setup as far as the overall journey? Is that a real important thing?
I guess delivery, I would rather leave it to professionals to deliver. Again, I go back to salesman, time is number one currency. I would rather have them show up. I still want to do a walk around. I think the one thing is just like, I don't know, I guess I look at it vehicles. Maybe everybody in here is a lot better at features on their vehicle and all the technology. I get it. I started up and drive it, and I hope the radio works. I hope XM works. And that's about the level that I go into the sophistication on a vehicle. I don't know 90% of the technology or features and benefits that I paid for. And so I do hope that our salesmen go through the walkthrough, point some of this stuff out that may make the customer's experience better with the purchase. But the time to haul it and stuff, unless it's a rural area, I don't want them doing it. They can be doing more productive stuff where that truck loads up, chains down, all that stuff. So I would much prefer if they just showed up for the customer experience versus the detail in the hauling and all that stuff.
I think at that delivery point where a new customer is taking his equipment, I think that might be the single best chance you have to wow that customer. That's the day he's happy, he's getting a new machine, and there'll be a day where he's not so happy and his machine's broke down. And so I like to think that we put a lot of bandwidth and resource into that walk around at delivery point. That's for new customers.
That's when you want to send your survey.
Yeah.
So for the group, what would you say is an opportunity? How do you improve that delivery experience for that customer? What have you guys specifically done that you think has really helped?
What we do, so we have a truck driver deliver as well, a commercial truck driver, and we've spent quite a bit of time training the truck drivers, the features and benefits and customer service side of it. So they'll go through and do all that, and then we ask our sales reps to set up a meeting either simultaneously or shortly thereafter to do the same thing more in depth. But I get a lot of feedback by, your guys' truck drivers are great, and it's because they know that and they take that responsibility on themselves, and it impresses a customer because they know their sales rep's supposed to do that, but they don't realize that the guy delivering the machine can do it as well.
How did you get the delivery people to take a sense of ownership or pride?
We just started talking about it. We actually had customers, we kind of discovered it by mistake, but we actually had customers brag on our truck drivers and how good they did it. They had learned to do it on their own over time. And then we thought, we ought to pour more into this because customers seem to really like it and be impressed by it. So we just started making it a focus at that point. We've probably been focusing on it for a couple of years now.
That's great. In our prep sessions, one of the things I thought was really interesting, Colt shared that once they shared with the delivery people how important it was to have a great experience with the customer, that delivery person also started to feel like their job was a lot more important. And they took a lot more pride in what they were doing. And so I think it's a great opportunity not only to improve the customer experience at that important period, but it's also an opportunity to make your employee feel really valued in the business. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah, that's a spot that you can do it. And then for us, the other spot that I feel like is such an opportunity is with your field service, because they're going to the customer's work site and they're doing the work right in front of them. And just that communication with the customer back and forth, that's another point where you could really kind of wow that customer on our company and what we can bring.
Yeah, and I think that all sort of lends towards building this trust, which allows you to do more solutions-based selling, which I think probably is significantly more profitable than more of a transactional-based sale, so it's great. All right, so customer has the product now, and they're using it, and they're going through maintenance processes. How do you wow the customer at this point? What tools are you using? What data do you have?
I mean, we use the first service for free. So we offer it, it's a break-in period, whatever you want to call it. We do that. Then we look for warranty to try to prevent problems that they don't know is coming yet. So we'll do that, but it's free service. Traditionally, we have them bring it back to the shop. We did have them if they sent field service to pay for just the travel time, but we often forget, never remember to bill them for it. So it's pretty much field or shop, but ideally you'd like to get them back to the shop. But it's just that touch point. It's making sure that the machine's performing right. If you notice something that's not right, you can get it fixed before they experience it. And again, it gets them to deal with our shops or deal with our service managers. And I think that creates that relationship of who to call in the next series of problems they may have, instead of trying to get a hold of the salesman who may or may not be busy. It's just trying to create those relationships at the dealership, which strengthens that bond with them, is kind of how we use it.
Yeah, we were also really quick, I know Ryan was as well, to jump on the Machine IQ bandwagon. And both of us have dedicated people that work there, and their whole job is to look at the information coming in on Machine IQ and then contact the customer.
And what is Machine IQ?
It's basically just a device that's in the machine, telematic device that's in the machine that gives us data back on what's going on with the machine. And so we use that, we monitor it constantly. We'll use it to call the customer and try to sell them PM services because we've noticed they've hit that number of hours on their equipment. We definitely use it to tell them about critical codes if something's really going haywire with their machine and they need to shut it down or bring it in to us. We'll use it to call and sell aftermarket things, sell aftermarket warranty, things of that nature as well. So just having that dedicated folks in the office making those calls using that data has been a pretty big change as well.
Talk to me about, owner-operator versus kind of someone that has, a larger fleet of pieces of equipment. How do they sort of perceive the value of Machine IQ and how you use it?
It definitely means more to the larger contracting customers, which, truth be told, is our bread and butter. So that's who we do want to wow. But a lot of times they have operators that are working for them, operating the equipment, and they're not necessarily paying attention to the machine and the critical codes, and so they really appreciate it. In fact, when a customer's subscription, those types of customers, when their subscription expires, they immediately re-up it for the next couple of years if they're going to own the equipment because they see the value in it.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Your owner-operator's not going to bypass 20 codes that their air filter's plugged, unlike the large contractors who it's just their operators. So the owner-operators are usually calling you, and the other ones you're having to call them to keep them ahead of what their maintenance stuff is.
Okay, how do you see it changing? So when you think about the journey and where it's going, the customer is engaging, you're using the telematics data, what could be next?
This is always a hard one because what I guess just kind of keeps moving on us. I'd argue that a lot of changes that you're probably making at a dealership today are forced through technology or the customer base. So it seems like they're pushing it. I mean, obviously a lot of vendors in here use telematics. I still kind of go back to, today I look at a lot of features, benefits. The customer assumes they need that. The customer assumes that it's value to them. And I would argue the one thing that I would like to see is the ability to be able to track and monitor the usage of features, benefits, to be able to provide a better solution in a price point, a better solution in a product form, where, the simple thing is a high flow. The customer may want high flow on all their machines. Reality is they probably use it 3% of the time. the money they spent on a fleet of 10 machines that have high flow, they probably could rent a machine for the time they need it here or there, and ultimately save them money, provide them a better experience with us, with the product, and ultimately probably save them some money. So I mean, I think there could be some more things like that down the road that help a customer. I mean, you look at analytics on a buying cycle, it's no different. It's everybody perceives they know what they need, and if you can help them through that path, through technology, I think that's where you're going to start to add value versus just quoting the thing, sending it over, or texting it over, and they look at price point versus when you can provide a solution for them. And, you know, at least on our manufacturer, Bobcat, they had some on-demand options, they called it. There's about 5 options on a large frame machine that you could turn on or off. And so I always thought it provided a great package for a customer. It's the right frame size, it's the right horsepower. Now, if they don't need high flow today, but they change their business tomorrow, they can literally turn a high flow on, they don't have to go buy a new machine. So I think more and more features and options like that are gonna maybe change how customers do business going forward. And I know some auto manufacturers use it today and things like that.
Do you think we get to a point where a customer comes in to buy a piece of equipment and you put together a plan or a strategy that says, hey, I think you need X hours of this piece of equipment, which is majority, and then I think you need to have a portion of rental, where you put together a whole solution for the year?
There are customers that do that today. It's not as much as you would like, or you could probably help. Again, I think as customers grow, and I always think a lot of our customers are very brilliant on the job or the career path they're in, whether it's landscape, whether it's whatever it is, they're great at that. But most of them are really good at that and don't look at the business or the equipment side. It's just reactionary. And I'm sure everybody in here has customers going, I didn't know I had that many machines on rent. I didn't need that many. Well, it's more of that, how do you provide that help and experience for them? And then help manage that for them. And I know it sounds like it's maybe overstepping our roles sometimes, but I think it's what customers, once they partner with you, are looking for. And I think that's what everybody's goal is, to find partners and not just a transaction in the day-to-day business.
Excellent. Customer support and service. So when we think about that, Touchpoint customer owns a product, they're having some challenges or issues, they need to contact you. How are you making that Touchpoint in the customer journey a positive experience? What are key tools there?
You know, for us, that's really where we try to concentrate on is our service department and our parts department. We've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we have the right parts in stock, and so that we can get that customer up and running as fast as possible. If we need to overnight something for our service department, we'll do that, just to slow down that time that the customer is without his machine. We've put quite a lot of resources into adding shop space and adding shops and technicians, so that there's not a wait time, or try to avoid a wait time as much as possible. But that's really, I would say, probably what we talk about more than anything is that piece of it, that service support.
I think supply chain, those supply chain issues that everybody experienced in the past really push that home on parts availability. I mean, we do it to where if we should have it in stock based on our system and we don't, because we made an error, maybe something didn't come when it was supposed to come, we won't charge freight on it, because in our mind, a customer should not pay freight if we're supposed to be stocking it. To Cole's point, shop space, I mean, I would argue today, you build a new building, it's for shop space and warehouse space. And I think, you know, I guess I look at it and time will tell if I'm right or wrong, but ultimately, the customer's gonna decide on a vendor they're gonna partner with on the service side, not on the sales side. It's gonna be, the service department is gonna be what wins the customer in the future, is how I'm kind of looking at it. And I guess in 10 years I'll tell you if I was right or wrong, but you know, it's just kind of where I believe it's going. And obviously everybody knows it's hard to find technicians and things like that. So I think that's becomes the point of a dealership that either pinches you down or opens you up for more opportunity.
We've invested heavily into technician training. They are by far and away our most trained employee position of any other position. And just basically investing in them and their career and their expertise.
Yeah, we've done the same thing. We've hired our own internal trainer along with our manufacturer's training, but I mean, I don't think you can train enough. I don't think you're not gonna go find seasoned technicians that are just around every corner, and so you gotta grow your own, and I don't think that today the manufacturers, at least, you know, from my vision, they're not gonna provide enough training. They're providing specific training. They're not providing overarching technician training that I think more and more are gonna need going forward.
Great. Feedback and reviews, right? So customer has the product, they're using the product, they're engaging with your organization. I know your organization uses our survey process to be able to collect the feedback for the customers. I'd like you to share a little bit about how you're using that to drive change in the organization, where you're getting other feedback, other information that's driving insights, anything that you can share with us about how that customer feedback is coming back into the organization and driving change.
Our customers are not shy about providing feedback. So we do the surveys, and then a lot of times they'll come to our website or come directly. They'll get a hold of me or one of my managers and go directly to them as well. We use that information to understand, a lot of different things. But if we have hot spots that we need to fix or work on, sometimes we're blind to those. So we'll use it for that. We use it a lot just to help train employees. A lot of times the employee they're a good employee, they just didn't quite have all the tools that they needed to satisfy that customer. We use it to motivate employees. We like to celebrate the wins, and so we make a big point to do that, and people have fun with that. And then probably the most important thing we do is we use it to rescue potential customers that may want to leave us because we've done something wrong and we didn't need it. And so that information has a lot of value, and it can be used a lot of different ways.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, you get a good review, you feel good, you think you conquered the world, but that should be the expectation, I guess, is a little bit of how I look at it. If we have a score below a 7, that branch is required to contact the customer, find out what's going on. But those are, to me, the most valuable ones. That's someone that's willing to tell you why you're not very good, or why you messed up that day, or someone had a bad attitude. We've been having more and more conversations around this. I mean, when we signed up for the service, it was just like, I hope we just get good scores. I hope we get good scores. And now it's kind of like, the more we look at it, it's like, okay, if you take the poor scores, there's a grain of truth in every poor score. Whether it's all true, partially true, there's a grain of truth in it. It's really becoming if we can satisfy every one of those that's willing to tell us where we need to improve on, the ones that won't say anything, hopefully it's even a better experience because we've raised the bar on what is the acceptable level at the bottom, and is really how we're starting to look at the surveys. And again, it's always fun to get the 10s and you feel good, but I don't think those really help an organization get better and to shore up their weaknesses. And I always find when you send the bad survey to that store, to that employee or that department, the first thing you hear is all the reasons that it's not really true. And the reality is there's truth in it. And I think that's the hard part to get the employees to accept, is that it's not a you're in trouble, but it's more of how do we fix this? How do we prevent it from happening again? And I think that's probably the most important parts of the survey that I look at on your stuff.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the other things we started doing with surveys a couple years ago was sending every customer that takes the time to fill out a survey a gift in the mail. And that's been a pretty cool thing too, because you'll hear them talking about that down the road.
That's great. So I think all of that's awesome. Any feedback you've received from customers that have driven real change in the business, and what are they, if you're willing to share?
I guess probably the biggest one is, I kind of touched on the supply chain issue. Theoretically, I'd never think parts is the department that should have the lowest score in your dealership, but obviously during the supply chain shortage, it was our lowest department score, below service, below anything that you think they'd be mad at. It was parts. And I think everybody thinks they're pretty good at parts, And that one, you know, we obviously increased our stock levels. We're more focused on it. Re-looked at a lot of our parameters in our business system and when we were ordering and how much we were having on stock and all those things. And I think we've gotten a lot better at it. But I think we could have told ourselves we were good if it wouldn't have been for those surveys and almost that jaw-dropping moment when parts was the lowest score in your dealership. Something's bad. And it was mostly parts availability, and I guess I never thought. The matrix tells you don't worry about it, but until customers really tell you over and over again, I think sometimes you forget to really think about it.
Yeah, we definitely saw the supply chain challenges show in the surveys too, during that time period. You know, a lot of it we couldn't solve, but there was pieces of it that we could be better at, and so we worked on that as well and did some things. The other one I've noticed for us is rental invoicing. I'll see surveys back that our customers were confused about what we were gonna bill them, and I have a big issue with that. You know, one of my things is I never want a customer to be surprised by an invoice, and so we've really worked hard at making sure that we don't do that.
What's an example of something for this group that you could share about helping you make sure that there's no confusion on rental invoices?
I think just communicating with them up front and also along the way. I think sometimes we just close the order, the thing's in the mail, they get it, and we haven't communicated with them whatsoever. So I think it's just, you know, points of contact, basically.
I feel like a lot of that, Cole, goes back to, I mean, whatever you do every day, whether it's sell machines or rent machines, you get these numbers in your head that just seem like a daily transaction. It's not a big deal. And I think sometimes we forget, or the employees or the managers forget that, you know, if you're writing a check for $3,000, yeah, it sounds like it's not a lot when you wrote 20 invoices that day for $3,000, but if you'd ask most employees or even ourselves, do you want to write a check for $3,000 for the fun of it? Most of us would go no, or $5,000, or whatever the amount is. And I think sometimes we, as dealerships, we lose that perspective of what that's real money to someone, and we just get so used to sending those out without much thought on it, is what I noticed. Especially when you get in that heat of the summer and that busy season, you're just a lot of going through the motions instead of actually thinking of it, how it would affect you if that was your invoice or your company. And you know, that's something that it's an ongoing training with employees, but I think it's vital.
I feel like, you know, we've talked about it so much in the service department. You don't surprise that customer with what you have to charge them, but it's so much more natural to have conversations with the customer along the way, because you kind of need them to approve the quote and talk about the parts and the time frame and all that. It doesn't happen naturally in the other departments like rental, and so I think it could be a real blind area. We all know to focus on it in service, but we should focus on it in other places too.
Great. Referrals and word of mouth. How are you guys, what are the things you're doing to encourage those type of actions from your customers?
We will sometimes run a referral program, which we'll market around, and you know, I think we just did one last summer with our tractors. We you know, if you refer us, we'll give you a gift or $500 or whatever it is. So we'll do that every once in a while, but we don't necessarily have a dedicated referral program that runs all the time. All of our salesmen are pretty good at asking for referrals, and so they understand that as well. But I think the biggest thing we can do is just wow them. It's interesting, customers will become such huge advocates, and then it almost becomes bragging rights by how many machines they sold you, because they went out and found 6 neighbors and talked you up and got them to buy from you. And so that's a big deal. And then I've noticed if they love their sales rep too, that goes a long ways as well.
Yeah, same thing, mini campaigns, one-offs. Obviously, as we did this prep for this, and you asked that question, it's one of those, I'm like, I have to figure something out because I'm pretty bad at it. And so, I mean, obviously it's the number one, you know, in my mind, the referral is the best lead you can get. And to not have an official program or a more active program on it was kind of my takeaway from this session of something I gotta get better at. And I think it probably goes a lot of places untalked about maybe.
It's great. Last category, lost customer. So talk to us a little bit about how you handle lost customers, suggestions as far as what other people can do to target those customers.
We talked about that. We're not very good at that either. We basically count them, and then I'm not so sure we do a good job of circling back up and going after them. We do have a CRM system that we'll put them into, and with reminders to check back in with them, just in case they're having an off week with their current vendor. So that's probably the biggest thing that we do around there. We also put them into our marketing program, so we continue to market to them heavier than we were before we knew who they were.
Yeah, we've done, they go into our marketing program, they get put on that, but, you know, we've done where UCCs, we send out rental discounts and all that stuff, just trying to earn that right to do business with them. I'm not sure we've ever done great with it. I think that's why it doesn't hit the radar. It's, you know, it's probably not the value that you're actually getting from sending them out, it's probably the reminders that they're getting. And so again, we don't have a spectacular program around that, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for sharing all your insights.